Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Sip and Talk. We are ready to deep dive, and today we're going to be talking about something that's, it's pretty prevalent, I guess you could say.
Always.
Yeah, advertising.
Yeah, you love it or you hate it. It's everywhere.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's inescapable. And we were talking a little bit before the show, and we're just like,
oh my gosh, that tofu commercial?
I know, Totoro's not for sale, but tofu is. What does that even mean?
This is so dumb.
But I can't stop singing it.
But you remember it.
That's the thing. It's like, it's so dumb that it's brilliant.
Exactly.
It's like, are we living in that movie, Idiocracy? Remember?
Yeah.
Brondo's got electrolytes.
It's got what plants crave.
It's like, is that what's happening to advertising?
Well, I mean, think about it, right? Like, we see so many ads every single day.
Oh, yeah. How many is it? It's got to be like thousands, right?
Yeah. Research shows that the average person is bombarded with anywhere from 4,000 to 10,000 ads every single day.
10,000. Every day.
Every single day.
No wonder I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
Seriously. And then you add on top of that, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. Like, I can't even watch a YouTube video without skipping ahead like 10 times.
I know, me too. Studies actually show that the average attention span now is just 8 seconds.
8 seconds.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
less than a goldfish.
I know, it's crazy.
So we've got like a gazillion ads fighting for our like rapidly shrinking attention spans.
Yeah.
So that explains why they're so loud and crazy. But does it have to be with these like ridiculous jingles?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, some research actually suggests that humor can be incredibly effective.
Really? Even if it's like super dumb humor?
Yeah, like studies show that humor can boost ad recall by as much as 30%.
So even if we're laughing at the ad, we're still more likely to remember the product.
That's the idea. Yeah.
It's like they're using our our love of dumb stuff against us.
Exactly. Like that tofu jingle. Weird, but you're still thinking about tofu, right? Mission accomplished.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And then you factor in social media. Everybody loves sharing funny videos and memes.
Oh, yeah.
So it makes sense for brands to try and hop on that trend and create stuff that goes viral.
Totally. Like if you can get your ad shared 1 million times, that's got to be like advertising gold.
Absolutely. A recent study by Sprout Social found that humorous ads get shared almost 50% more often than informational ones.
Wow. Okay, so it's like a whole new ball game now.
It really is.
I was even reading that like artificial intelligence is being used now to come up with these like catchy slogans and stuff.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of wild?
It is a little bit like, are we heading towards a future where AI is making all of our ads and they're all just like these meaningless but catchy phrases?
Oh man, that's a little scary.
It is a bit, right?
Like what happens when we can't tell the difference between a real jingle and one written by a robot?
That's a good question.
That's a deep thought for you.
It is, and it leads us to another important point, right? Like, we've been talking about how these dumb ads can grab our attention.
Right.
But are they actually effective in the long run? Like, do they actually make people want to buy stuff? That's the thing, right? Like, a jingle might get stuck in your head.
Yeah.
But does it actually make you want to buy the thing? That's what really matters.
Yeah, because, I mean, at the end of the day, these companies aren't just trying to, like, entertain us. Mm-hmm. They're trying to sell us stuff.
Exactly. And there's actually a lot of research out there that says that humor can be effective. But it also has some downsides.
Okay, so like what are the risks of going the dumb ad route?
Well, one thing is that it can actually damage the brand's credibility.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the Edelman Trust Barometer, which is this thing that measures consumer trust across different industries, found that 38% of consumers think that dumb ads make brands seem less trustworthy.
That makes sense. Like imagine if like a really fancy car company.
Right.
Like a luxury brand, suddenly started doing these like goofy jingles. Yeah, weird. It's like, are you serious?
And there's research to back that up. Like a study in the Journal of Marketing Science found that when luxury brands use humor in their advertising customer, loyalty actually takes a hit.
Interesting.
Especially among like high-end consumers.
So it's like you really got to know your audience and know when to use humor and when not to.
Yeah, for sure. And there are some real-world examples of this backfiring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of the articles you sent me mentioned a food brand that got a ton of backlash for an ad they did where it was like this silly dance.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that one.
And people thought it was so childish and unprofessional, and it actually hurt their sales.
Ouch. So I guess trying too hard to be funny can backfire sometimes.
Definitely. It's all about finding the right balance.
And you also got to think about different generations too, right? Like Gen Z might think something's hilarious.
Yeah.
But like older people might be like, what is this?
Exactly. Like Gen X and boomers, they tend to have a different sense of humor.
And they've got all the money.
And they have a lot of spending power, so you can't ignore them.
So it seems like these dumb ads are a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they could go viral and be huge.
Yeah.
But they could also totally flop and ruin the brand.
It's a risk for sure.
It's a tough call for these companies.
And then there's another thing to consider, which is cultural context.
Oh, yeah, like how different cultures might see humor differently.
Exactly. Like research suggests that Eastern cultures, like Japan, for example, they're way more comfortable with absurd humor in advertising.
Really?
Yeah, like one study found that 75% of popular Japanese ads use humor.
Wow.
Compared to only 32% in the U.S.
That's a big difference.
It is. It's really interesting. Like, why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe it's just part of their culture. Like they're more open to being silly and playful.
Yeah, maybe it's not seen as unprofessional or childish in the same way it might be here.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
But even with all these cultural differences, there's this growing concern around the world about ethics in advertising, especially when it comes to using manipulative tactics.
Like those jingles that get stuck in your head.
Exactly.
Like, even if you hate the song, you're still singing it.
And that raises some questions, right? Like, is it okay for brands to use these techniques to like mess with our psychology, even if it's just to sell us something?
That's a tough one because on one hand, it's just advertising, right? They're not forcing us to buy anything.
Right.
But on the other hand, they are using these like sneaky methods to influence us.
Yeah.
And it can be really effective, especially on kids.
Especially on vulnerable groups like kids.
Yeah, so it's not as simple as it seems.
No, it's definitely a complex issue.
So what do you think? Will this whole dumb ad trend continue? Or are people going to get tired of it?
That's the big question, right?
Like, is it a fad or is it here to stay?
I mean, it's like a pendulum, right? It swings back and forth. So maybe we'll reach a point where people are just like, enough with the silliness. We want something real. We want authenticity. Yeah. And then there's the whole AI thing.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Like, what happens when AI starts creating all the ads?
Will we even know it's real anymore?
It's kind of freaky to think about.
It is a bit dystopian.
But there might be a solution, and it comes from us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like user-generated content.
You mean like YouTube reviews and stuff?
Exactly. Like people are turning to those more and more.
I know. I watch a ton of product reviews before I buy anything.
Yeah, me too. And it's because it's real.
It's like you're getting the inside scoop from someone who's actually used the product.
Exactly. It's not just some marketing spiel. It's someone's real experience.
And that's way more valuable.
Yeah, and it gives the power back to the consumer.
Like, we're not just passively absorbing these ads anymore.
Right. We're actively seeking out information and sharing our own experiences.
So it's like a more balanced playing field.
Exactly. It's a shift in the power dynamic.
I like that.
Yeah. So maybe user-generated content is the key to combating the dumb ad epidemic.
Maybe it's the antidote we've been looking for.
It's definitely a possibility, and it's something to keep an eye on.
So it sounds like the future of advertising is still up in the air.
Yeah, for sure. There are a lot of factors at play.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It will. We're living an interesting time.
We sure are. So where do we go from here? Is this the beginning of the end for dumb ads?
That's a great question, and it's one we're going to explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Stay tuned.
I just want to give another shout out to Micky from Mickytolife. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip&Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it.
All right, so we talked about all this stuff, you know, the dumb ads and the problems with them, and then this whole thing with user-generated content.
Right. A lot to unpack.
So, like, where does that leave us? What's the future of advertising? What do you think?
Well, if we look at everything we just talked about, it seems like advertising is kind of at a crossroads right now.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have this push for, simplicity and humor and stuff that people want to share.
Right, because of our shrinking attention spans and because everyone's on social media all the time.
Exactly. It's like this constant battle for our attention. And in that kind of environment, a dumb ad that makes you laugh or, triggers some kind of emotion can be really effective.
But then there's the other side of it, like we talked about, where it can actually hurt the brand.
Right. It can make them seem less trustworthy or even alienate some of their customers.
And it kind of contributes to this whole culture of like instant gratification and superficiality.
That's a good point. Like we're getting trained to just respond to the loudest and most outrageous things.
Yeah.
Which isn't always a good thing.
So is there any hope? Like, can we find some kind of middle ground?
I think so. And this is where I think user-generated content is so important because it's like the opposite of all that.
Right. It's real people sharing their real experiences.
Exactly. And that's way more powerful than some slick marketing campaign.
And it just feels more genuine, you know? You're more likely to trust a friend's recommendation or even a stranger's review on YouTube.
Absolutely. It's like show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Instead of just telling us how great your product is, show us how it works in real life.
Yeah. Let us see it in action.
And I think this whole trend towards authenticity is only going to get stronger because people are just so skeptical of advertising these days.
They can see right through the BS.
Exactly. So brands are going to have to step up their game.
Yeah.
They can't just rely on catchy jingles and slogans anymore.
They got to give us something real.
They got to earn our trust.
So maybe it's not about dumb ads versus smart ads.
Right.
Maybe it's about finding that balance between being entertaining and being informative.
I think you're right. It's about creating a conversation with consumers, not just talking at them.
Treating us like intelligent human beings.
Exactly.
Who can appreciate a good joke, but also want something real.
I think that's a great way to put it.
So that's a challenge for brands, but it's also a huge opportunity.
For sure.
If they can embrace authenticity and transparency and real connection, they can create advertising that's not only effective, but also meaningful.
And valuable for consumers.
Well said. I'm feeling a lot better about the future of advertising now.
Me too. It's an exciting time.
It is. Thanks for this awesome deep dive. I learned a lot.
Of course, it was fun talking about this stuff.
And to all of our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this journey through the crazy world of advertising.
Keep those BS detectors on high alert.
Yes, and don't be afraid to demand more from the brands you support.
And if you hear any ridiculous jingles, send them our way.
We're always up for a good laugh.
Always.
Until next time, keep sipping, keep thinking, and stay curious.